I'm Dr. Les Lynette, and I hope to help you understand psychiatric problems. Parental alienation syndrome has to date not been included in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders and is not widely accepted in the United States courts. Even after it might be included in the Diagnostic Manual, courtroom arguments will continue for decades because it appears invisible. Unlike physical abuse where scars and wounds are external, parental alienation syndrome destroys internally, and thus a denial that parental alienation syndrome has occurred is relatively easy. The portrayal of the alienated parent as inferior or bad is even more convincing when the child supports the aligned parent against the targeted parent. However, the brainwashing of children against a targeted parent is believed by many to occur. It is not invisible to them. How then to present the problem to judges and mental health specialists who may be confused or taken in by the aligned parent? Opponents point out that parental alienation syndrome is not universally accepted by the scientific community. Therefore, they argue it cannot be said to exist. I respond by analogy that the universal law of gravitation had not existed nor been demonstrated scientifically before Sir Isaac Newton. Nevertheless, as any fool can plainly imagine, even before Newton, a strange phenomenon always exerted a force upon the apple. Like parental alienation syndrome, gravity is both mysterious and otherwise invisible. Because of its controversy, many experts advise that the term parental alienation syndrome not even be mentioned in U.S. courts. They advocate, instead, a very clear demonstration of the underlying behaviors and strategies that actually cause the effect of pitting children against the targeted parent. In order to demonstrate alienating behaviors and strategies, there has to be a basic appreciation of the phenomenon of brainwashing. Parental alienation syndrome has been likened to a cult in which the leader brainwashes and programs its members to hate and fear outsiders and even their own family. Examples of such brainwashing are widely understood to have occurred in various situations. J.C. Dugard was kidnapped by Philip and Nancy Garrido when she was just 11 years old in 1991 and held captive for the next 18 years in a backyard compound. She was subjected to rape, manipulation, and verbal abuse. Garrido fathered 2 daughters with J.C. in that backyard prison. After being rescued after 18 years of captivity, she amazingly referred to Philip Garrido as a great guy. Over the 18 years of J.C.'s captivity, parole officers also had visited the home at least 60 times. Another public case of mind control is that of Elizabeth Smart. In 2002, this 14-year-old was snatched from her bed. The world watched as her family begged for her safe return. A home movie featured a beautiful young girl playing the harp. On March 12, 2003, when authorities rescued her, people questioned how, in 9 months, she could not escape, especially as her abductors had not always held her captive. In fact, she had walked in public, attended parties, and even refused to reveal her true identity when first approached by police. Perhaps even stranger was her concern after her rescue about her captors. What's going to happen to them? She cried the whole way to the police station. Some cult leaders are well known to exert brainwashing mind control on their members. David Koresh was a Branch Davidian leader who claimed to be its final prophet. Believing Koresh to be God's tool to set up the Davidic kingdom, in 1985, Koresh and followers set up camp at Palestine, Texas, 90 miles from Waco. Koresh had multiple children by different women in the group. In 1993, based on the charge that Koresh was abusing children, the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives raided the Davidian ranch outside Waco. The subsequent siege by the FBI ended with the burning of the Branch Davidian compound. Koresh, 54 adults, and 21 children were found dead after the fire. Cult brainwashing of its constituents is also widely recognized to have occurred in Jim Jones's People's Temple in Jonestown in Guyana. At Jones's direction, over 900 members committed mass suicide from apparent cyanide poisoning in 1978. Patty Hearst, heiress to the Hearst publishing fortune, is also believed to have been brainwashed by the so-called Symbionese Liberation Army in 1974 after they kidnapped her. Within 2 months of her kidnapping, Patty had changed her name and referred to her family as the Pig Hearsts. The security camera of a bank in San Francisco showed her holding an assault rifle as members robbed the bank. Another example of brainwashing is the Stockholm Syndrome, which was named after a 1973 bank robbery in Stockholm. Robbers held bank employees hostage for 6 days, during which the hostages became emotionally attached to their captors. They expressed empathy and positive feeling toward their captors. Even after they were freed from their 6-day ordeal, they refused to testify against them and instead raised money for their defense. During the Korean War in the 1950s, several American POWs ultimately falsely confessed to waging germ warfare and pledged allegiance to communism by the end of their captivity. At least 21 soldiers refused to come back to the United States when they were free. Yet it was only 21 out of more than 20,000 prisoners. So brainwashing does not always work on everyone. Although poorly understood by most people, in much the same way some parents convert a child into their way of thinking to renounce all ties with the targeted parent and with his or her family and friends. If a cult leader can do this to total strangers, would it not be easier for a parent to do this to his or her children? And since the previous examples demonstrate brainwashing in adults, it is reasonable to assume a parent can also brainwash a child of any age, even an adolescent or adult child. When a parent is motivated to brainwash or program a child against the other parent, it can even occur within intact families. It takes time to program a child. Generally, such programming against the alienated parent begins long before significant marital problems surface. Parental alienators are seriously disturbed. They often begin their programming soon after the child's birth. Within a few years, it can be very difficult for children to forget these ideas, feelings, and beliefs with which they have been inculcated essentially from the time they were born. Such negative views of the targeted parent lay in the back of the child's mind and fully surface after the divorce is initiated and the alienating parent's rage fans the flames within the child. Anyone, lay or professional, who denies that a child could be alienated from his or her parent is essentially proposing that cults and kidnappers cannot brainwash or program people. Such denial defies the fact that cults and kidnappers have destructively exerted mind control. Until the courts and people in general accept the fact that brainwashing a child against the other parent can and does occur, this form of domestic violence will continue to destroy children and targeted parents. How can a child be turned against a loving parent? The answer is a subject for a different discussion. But to someone struggling to comprehend this mysterious but destructive phenomenon, I would simply use the law of gravity as an analogy. You don't have to understand how gravity causes an apple to fall from the tree. You just need to have observed it to know it is real.